Alright, so what we're looking at here is I call it Dark Pyre. You can call it what you want. It's, at base, it's an Aurelian Worldpyre deck. We are playing some Justice cards when Shenra speaks in aid of the Hooru, and we can hardcast them in a pinch. But, for the most part, we're not really a 4-color deck. I guess technically we're a 4-color deck, but, mostly just Aurelian, which is Shadow, Time, and Primal. And Primal's just kind of a splash. But this deck's really fun to play. We've got a lot of really cool Surge synergy going on here. And Surge combos excellently with Worldpyre. So we're able to really pop off here. Some interesting things going on. We are playing Transpose, and we're actually not grabbing Worldpyre with Transpose in this deck. Usually you'll see me using Transpose to grab Pyre, and just basically playing a control list. But there's not as many good control options in Expedition. We don't have Hailstorm, and it's just not... I didn't like it as much, so I opted to just play Transpose to just give myself Aegis at instant speed, and just play like a nice little toolbox in the market, and just to main deck 4 Worldpyre and 4 Calibrate, which I have down here. So, to support that, we are playing a few Marionette Cross and a few one Grodov's Burden here. Cross is just... Oftentimes we can play it on turn 3, most games. Sometimes you can't, but... And what this does against the fire-based aggro decks is Check can't kill it without help, which is usually enough to... It forces our opponent to spend time dealing with our 5/5, and then hopefully next turn we can slam a Worldpyre and like take over the game from there while they're like throwing resources at Marionette Cross. So that's kind of the idea. It's also just an extra hit with Calibrate, so if you're in a pinch, you just really need some action. You have just this free power 5/5, and then we can also hit Grodov's Burden with it. I was playing more, but I found that it's been kind of clunky. It's a card I want to have access to be able to dig to later on, or potentially have. But it's a card where if you ever draw more than one, you just kind of hate it. In our deck, at least, because our deck's kind of top-heavy. We've got all these 4-drops and 5-drops and 6-drops, and... just a lot of top end, so I'd find myself not having time to actually play Grodov's Burden. So the solution there is to only play one, and you can never possibly draw more than one, so it won't clunk up your hands. So that's pretty neat. For our early game, we're just looking to develop our power, play Marionette Cross, play Petition, get the power we need to get where we're going, play Alchemist and Calibrate to just rip power. Alchemist is one of our few forms of early interaction. That could be a mistake, but it's kind of fun this way. Just the way it is now is pretty fun. Catra's hilarious. We are playing a few Vows to support her, but we actually have, I'll get to it in a minute, but there's another card that combos greatly with Catra. And the Surge effect is fantastic. Being multi-colored means she won't die to Annihilate too, which can be pretty crucial in some matchups. And if you're able to play her and put a power into play, or play her and Surge something, she can actually get out of Jack range as well, which is crucial in my opinion. So, next up, Karvet. If you play Karvet, he's going to catapult you up to a minimum of 8 influence. And if they kill him in combat, that puts you at 11 influence. So all you need from that point is one other power, and you're casting 8 of the Hooru with your Worldpyre. So that's pretty hilarious. Also, the obvious synergy with Catra and Severin. So we are... we're making full use of the Surge, and that's kind of why our deck's as top-heavy as it is because we want to play as much synergy cards with this while still keeping true to the standard 4 Aid, 4 Soul's Rest, 4 Shenra speaks that Worldpyre decks should probably be running. And I say that because oftentimes you need to basically take your opponent's ability to play the game away from them. So Shenra speaks, wipe the board, just pause the board. Unless they have Aegis, you just reset the board there. Soul's Rest, you can take an extra turn, or you can reset the board with it. But that's just another, free roll depending on what you need to do. And then Aid of the Hooru, you stun the whole board and make your own board and refill your hand. So between these 12 cards, it's kind of the bread and butter of the deck. And they'll kind of go in most Worldpyre decks pretty handily. And even if you don't have the influence to cast Shenra Speaks and Aid of the Hooru, I think you should still be just jamming 4 of these. I'm not a huge fan of playing Broker and marketing Aid of the Hooru or marketing Soul's Rest. If you're playing a budget version, feel free to do that. But for me, I find it so crucial to be able to curve into these cards and not have to rely on drawing maybe into them in your top 20 with Broker. Now, Broker is still something we want access to, and what we can do is we can play Transpose and maybe hide a minion from turn to seed, or we can put an Aid of the Hooru or a Soul's Rest in our market that we don't need early, and then grab Broker later on and then Broker it. Or we can maybe Broker a Silverblade Menace or something. But as it stands, I'm not a huge fan of forcing Broker as our only way of hitting Aid of the Hooru, and I find it to be so important for stabilizing that I just want access to it in the main deck, and I want something like Reap or Karvet to make sure I'm hitting it early and often. So that's kind of my thought process there. Basically went over every card. Torgov's Trading Post, discarding power every turn is very important, and it's kind of... I don't think I've seen a lot of people playing with Torgov's Trading Post in the format. Even if you play your Trading Post and put some Titans into your deck and it dies immediately, well, that's your opponent either spending removal spell or putting resources towards killing your site, or they have to, attack it, which might basically be a fog or your way of preventing your face from taking damage for that turn. So even if most of the time we're not flipping Torgov's Trading or a Torgov Ice Trap Trader, that's not really why we're playing it. Sometimes I'll play it and just scout with it and then let it die, and it'll flip a power into my void, and then later on I can play Katra and flip that power into play, and it'll actually set me ahead. I did start out with 4 of these, and I cut back. We just needed space for more impactful things, but it's a pretty neat card. You could potentially cut it, but I think it's part of the fun factor of this deck, so I wouldn't cut it, but maybe if I was going to go play in a tournament, maybe this would become Annihilate or something, but or Permafrost or whatever. But you do you, fam. For the rest of the market, we've got Burglarize. Argenport used to be more of a deck. I haven't really seen it. I've seen maybe 2 or 3 Argenport decks, and in the games I recorded, I didn't see any. So maybe it's time for Burglarize to get cut. Kozlo's kind of interchangeable with Malediction. Malediction being better against Shrine and some of the aggressive strategies. But I just found it to be often redundant, and I wasn't going for it very often. Whereas Kozlo's kind of interesting as an additional synergy card for Katra. So Kozlo can be neat. I'm more just testing him out, and he was in the deck for all the games, so I think it's better to leave this here. But potentially you might want Malediction instead, so that's up to you. Beating Time, I found myself just wanting a hard removal spell in the market, and this is the only one we have access to. So that's how that happened. And Silverblade Menace just wins games against any sort of control deck, so that's why that's there. Sometimes we play it against, an aggressive or spell-based deck, but for the most part, it's just there so you can, against another control deck, or a deck like mine, just end of turn Transpose, pop their Aegis, play Menace, kill them, or Transpose, Broker your Menace, and then kill them eventually. So that's the list. One of the things I've noticed is a lot of players are running with the new Dazzle card, or stuff like Backlash or Random Counter Magic. If you're seeing a lot of that, there could be a good argument to moving to a more creature-based version of this. So playing Worms, just a diversified threat list, just a lot of different, rather than playing these thick 4-ofs, you just play a lot of 2-ofs and 1-ofs of like big minions that draw cards, and that can be a way to kind of combat that strategy. But I like it like this. It's kind of pure because we've got all these 4-ofs, and it's pretty consistent at doing what it does, and it's fun to play. So just keep in mind that if you find yourself losing the Dazzle, this deck can be just tuned and branched out and pushed down different paths as you will. So that's kind of the fun of Worldpyre, is you can do a lot of different things with it. You're not just forced into this spell-based strategy, but man, it's so good when you're just firing off 8 of the Hooru super early, so this deck's pretty sweet.